Okay, well, welcome back to my shop. Today, I have a special request. How do we change the liner in your European style Benzel type um, MIG gun? So, I ordered a graphene liner. I did that because I'm going to do an aluminum welding deal at some point here. But, like everyone else, I want to see, does this thing actually weld aluminum? Now, I actually know it does because one of our the guys that has been following these videos actually has been doing aluminum welding, and I got to tell you, he said that this is the first time he's done that. I'm impressed. He's doing a really good job. I've asked him if I can use some of his images and stuff so y'all can see if it works. But we will definitely do that. Okay, so what we have here is the graphene liner. And he was, by the way, doing it without the graphene liner, and he was actually making it work. Now, I don't recommend that because inside the liner, the aluminum can not only gull inside the metal liner, but it can also arc inside that metal liner and stick itself, and then you'll end up with a ruined liner. So this is the graphene liner, okay, and I'm going to show you another one. This is what I was attempting to use on my other aluminum video. This is a nylon or Teflon liner, and it's essentially nothing more than a plastic tube, okay, and otherwise it's the same kind of deal. It ends up with the same. Now, I noticed looking at this one and looking at this on my Teflon liner and on the original liner, there is this handy dandy seal right here. And looking at this, I just opened this graphene liner, so you guys are going to be we're all in the same boat at this point. I'm going to assume that there's supposed to be some sort of seal, and there it is. It's in here. Okay. I kind of sort of figured we need that. All right, so it is right here. So now the question becomes, which end does it go on? Is it on that end? Or is it on this end? And since they really don't give you any instructions on this, I'm going to assume that we want to put the graphene as close to the MIG tip. But then, what if this melts? So that becomes an issue. How hot does that tip get, and does that melt? And since they didn't tell you what we need to do on that, I'm going to err on the side of caution and assume that this end is what goes up against the the tip, because it's going to get hot up there. And I do know that when you're pushing aluminum wire, because of the expansion and that kind of thing, if you're using a 3/5 wire, you want to use a 4 or 4/5 tip. Now, I bought some nickel plated tips as well that are not supposed to have the issue with the aluminum getting stuck to them. So we're going to try that when I get to the aluminum one. Right now I'm still in the works, still working on trying to put hydro steering on the Super Sammy. But today we're going to work about trying to get that liner in here. So what do? Well, the first thing you got to do is you got to unscrew that tip right there. See? You want to unscrew that. Take it off right there. Put it off to the side and hide it so you don't lose it. Then you can grab your liner. Now, putting the liner in is very much like putting wire in when you're feeding wire. You want to have the stinger, your cable, as straight as possible. It makes the whole process easier. So, if it's a straight, like it is, you should be able to grab this and pull it out. And you'll notice that the factory liner does actually have some nylon around it, because it's obviously got to try to keep that thing as gas tight as possible. It's feeding gas down through there. And because they did that with the graphene and they put the wire towards the end, I'm going to assume we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to find out. I've not used a graphene liner, and I've only put the nylon ones in, and they don't have that. They have no metal in theirs at all. There's no metal in these. All the contact is done elsewhere. So, and you'll see on this nylon liner, it has that seal, and that is the seal right here. Now this appears to be a collet style. I don't know if you can see that. So when I tighten that down, I'm going to assume it's going to crimp down and seal up around our graphene liner. So now I've tried to get my liner as straight as I possibly can. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the assumption that this is correct, and we're going to shove the graphene liner down in there. Now, changing liners actually is part of maintenance after you run a lot of wire through a MIG welder, and you'll start running into issues with feed. I started getting that with my Millermatic 200, and after visiting with some folks, they said, you know, you're supposed to change the liners out. I was like, no, I didn't know that. So, yep, that's one of those maintenance things that we rarely ever think about. So now I'm trying to get this thing as straight as possible so it'll finish feeding. This liner down through there, and it does not want to go. There it goes. All right, we got past whatever the spot was down there. By the way, you want to take your tip off your gun. Obviously no wire. And want to keep that thing as straight as possible. It's fighting me. It really does not want me pushing this in there. It does not want me to do that. This one wants to stick. Now they put a brass end between the last of the wire portion of that and the graphene. And I'm so close. And what they don't tell you is, do you have to trim any of the graphene off? I'm hoping not. We're going to find out here. Where are we at on the gun side of things? Are we getting anywhere close to this? Now on the bigger 25, 24 series gun, by the way, I have a feeling that we trim off the graphene. They're not telling me that, but I don't know if you can see that, but there is our liner. So I have a feeling we're supposed to trim the graphene off, and that would be much easier to do and create less problems than us trying to, I'm trying to get this thing straight, guys. Yeah, it is not, nothing else is going through there, so I'm going to make that assumption that that is what we've got to do. I had to do that with the nylon liners. They come longer than what they need to be, and you got to trim them off. So I'm going to make the assumption that that's the same thing that's going to happen here. So with that being said, it seems to me that if I was a smart guy, which I'm not, I would be better served to go ahead and push that down on there as far as I can, and then I'll take a razor blade when I'm done and I'll trim the liner off so that it's exactly flush with the end of that nozzle. So here we have the you can see that that's sticking up out of there. So I am thinking that if I had a razor in here, I would just trim that off the top of that. Now we don't want to grab this with a pair of sharp pliers, because this needs to be able to seal up in your in the plug-in on your welder. So we don't want to get this all marred up and damaged. So don't resist going in there with a pair of pliers and cranking down. If you're going to do that and you think you need to tighten that up, grab your leather gloves, wrap a chunk of leather around that, and then you can grab your pliers and get a hold of it and grip it. But I don't think I would take your pliers and grab this and just go cranking down on it, because you most likely will damage that, and I don't think that's what we want to do here. Now I've got another little seal here, and I don't know what happened and why that is there unless it popped off. So I'm going to pull this back out and find out what happened with that. And I don't know why we have an extra seal unless my seal popped off. And I've been known to do that too, because I don't pay attention all the time. Can't figure out how to get that back out of there without doing any damage to it. Okay, there's that little seal. Okay, so there appears to be multiple seals going on here. I dropped one. And so now the question is, did one of the other seals pop off the end of this one? Now, the factory liner has one black seal right there. I don't see a pair. And the Teflon liner has one seal, just like the factory. And this one now no longer has a seal at all. So I have a feeling it's kind of sort of what happened there. Now the question is, what did I do wrong and why? So we'll get that back on there. Alright, so there's that seal, if you can see that. And I ended up with an extra seal. Don't know why. Don't know if it really matters. The important thing is that it seals up and we don't lose gas, because it doesn't do us any good if we're not getting gas to the weld puddle. You know why they're doing it that way? I don't know. But we'll find this end. Alright, so we got this back again. It's sticking out. We have this part. Slip it down on there just like it was like it's supposed to be. I've got that big O-ring. I don't think I'm going to double it up. The others don't have it, so I guess I'm not going to re-engineer things. Alright, so got that. I don't know if that's supposed to be on top of it. It was inside that little deal here, and I set it down, and that could be what happened. So that's why I had an extra. But we're going to tighten this thing down. Like I said, this is, you don't want to go cranking down on these things with anything extra heavy duty. And there we have it. Now I'll trim that off, obviously, before I go putting it in on the welder. But that's really all there is to it. And now at the end of this, you will see that I have a little bit of the liner sticking out, and that's okay. It's okay to have a little bit of that liner sticking out. You're going to end up screwing your tip down into that anyway, so you don't want a bunch of that sticking out. Just a little bit, because you want to get your tip on there, and it can push that liner back, and I can push it with my finger. So, and then it'll be ready. We'll put the nozzle and everything back on after I put a tip on there, and what tip I need to run. And that's all there is to changing out your liner. So, and again, this is a maintenance thing, because over time, as you run through lots and lots of wire, you will eventually wear your liner. And they get nasty, and they don't want to feed right, and you start running into feed problems, and you think it's you think you got your rollers are wearing out, or you've got other problems, or your feed motor is not doing what it's supposed to, and all along it had nothing to do with the motor at all, or the rollers. It has everything to do with the fact that your liner is filthy. And dirty wire, buying cheap wire. Obviously, you don't want to run dirty wire. That's another thing too. When you buy wire and then you swap out one roll and you go to the other roll, and most of the wire we get has a real light copper coating on it to keep it from rusting. But rusty, nasty wire, don't try to feed it. It's only going to, one, mess up your liner, and two, you're going to get crap welds anyway, because it's just like trying to weld with rusty metal. You can't, it doesn't create a pretty weld. So if you got a broken spool, you'll probably find that if you ordered a spool and it comes and the plastic spool is broken, it is not going to feed worth a damn. You're going to end up with problems of that wire wanting to either unspool or getting caught up on the broken edges of your spool. So always feed the wire so that it feeds from the bottom into your feeder. And then if you got a broken spool, just know that you most likely won't be able to use much of the wire. It probably will get all snagged up if you lose control of the wire. And it goes unspooling like crazy, and that's happened to all of us. The chances of you getting that wire back on that spool where it does not get snagged is slim to none. And then you'll end up pulling off a whole crap load of wire that just got wasted because you couldn't get it spooled back up on the spool. So the best thing you can do when you unspool, pull the wire back, keep it as tight as you can, and then leave a long enough tail that you can hold everything, get it through, bend it over so that it cannot unspool on you later down the road. And then when you're wiring, putting the wire back through, keeping control of that wire as you're respooling is incredibly important. Some of your wires, like aluminum's not quite as bad about wanting, doesn't have the memory like steel, but the steel wire and your stainless wire, that stuff wants to just unwind and you will have a hell of a mess. So anyway, something to think about. All right, that's going to do it for this. It's already at 20 minutes, so this is longer than I wanted it to go. Hope this helped. Take care.